So I'm Sean Udell. I was CC 2011. I guess I still am. And I was an urban studies and history major. And at Columbia, I was the senior class president of 2011. I also was the president of the Queer Alliance and was a tour guide on campus. Now I am a Teach for America 2011 Corps member in Colorado. I am a math special education teacher. I primarily do interventions with students who have special needs, and we do interventions on math, whether it's pre-algebra for 7th grade or basic procedures in 6th grade. I really believe that any major that one pursues at Columbia can be a gateway to a whole host of opportunities. I'm not sure that being an urban studies major or history major necessarily made me more qualified for certain jobs than any other liberal arts major might have. But I know that being an urban studies major gave me a particular appreciation for a lot of the current problems in cities and made me acutely aware of the need for education reform. And so that's what I think got me really motivated to work in a high-performing charter school. Well, I think just from when I was at Columbia, I think it was a difficult decision to go into education because there's a pretty pervasive feeling that if you have gone to an elite Ivy League school that you shouldn't be going into education, that somehow it's a second-tier profession and that it's not a place where Ivy League graduates belong. And I felt that a lot from interactions that I had with people, and I often heard from people that I was like supposedly overqualified, which I still don't know what that means, because having come into the education world, no one cares that I went to Columbia. What they care about is that I have a big heart and that I'm ready to learn and that I'm humble and really here, to serve students and their families and to serve the community that I work in. I still get comments all the time that sound something like, what are you going to do after you're done with TFA? Which my answer is I'm still going to be teaching. My school is 93% students of free or reduced lunch, 96% students of color. And I might as well have come from Mars. In terms of my background, I have very little personal identification with my students' history, except for the fact that I grew up speaking Spanish, which is something that I share with 90% of my students who come from first or second generation Mexican immigrant families. Being in a totally different environment has given me immense perspective in what it means to not come from a place of privilege. So I was involved with a program called Breakthrough Collaborative all 4 years of college. It's a nationwide program that focuses on students in middle school. It's a summer and school year enrichment program for students that's led by high school and college students. I was also involved with the Double Discovery Center at Columbia, specifically part of the Teagle Foundation, which is a program that works with students who are going into their senior year of high school. And we did one summer with those students in an intensive seminar, and they got to live in John Jay and had a really sort of collegiate summer as a way to prepare them for the application process that they would face as seniors, and then their coming college experience. I think with Teach for America, the organization primarily looks for people who have leadership experience. So being involved in the Student Council and being involved in the Queer Alliance were both really great avenues to talk about what it's like to work with hundreds of people on a day-to-day basis and have to negotiate those relationships in order to come out with some sort of optimal outcome. And those are really essential experiences that I reflect on every day when I think about managing a team, and as a special educator, I work with many adults and try to get everyone into one room to discuss and problem solve different students and their disability. And so I think about those leadership experiences frequently, and I'm really grateful for that. I'm looking forward to gaining a lot of experience on the ground as a teacher, and eventually I would like to gain leadership experience in the educational field as well, whether that's a role as as an assistant principal or someone who's working on a policy level. I don't know, but I see education inequality as the greatest civil rights problem of our time, and I can't think of anything that would be more meaningful for me to work in than education and education policy. The biggest piece of advice that I could give to anyone who wants to go into education from Columbia is to not listen to any of your peers and to not be overwhelmed by what they are doing, because you will constantly feel inferior because of your choice, even though on a very rational level you know that what you're doing makes a lot of sense and is something where you can do an enormous amount of good. And I would say to seek out a lot of people who don't even know what Columbia is, that when you say, I go to Columbia, they give you a strange look. Those are people that you should look for if you want to go into the education field, because you will find a lot more support there. But in that vein of seeking out people who don't necessarily know what Columbia is or don't really care, if you're going into the educational field, you have to be excited about becoming a part of a community, especially if you're coming from a place of privilege like Columbia. You have to be excited about becoming a part of a community that you know nothing about. So I think just being willing to explore and listen and learn about everything that's out in the city of New York. I mean, there are tens of thousands of different organizations that one could get involved in New York City that have nothing to do with Columbia, and I think that would do so much more for someone who wants to get into education than trying to work within the walls, because it's an ivory tower, and the kind of work that I find to be really meaningful has to happen from outside of those walls.